So stable dispatch fill rate is going to be the difference between controlling growth steady, being steady, or just chaos sometimes. And so whenever you have like a high volatility of your fill rate, you're going to have the main thing you're going to have is, unhappy customers. But it's also going to force things like overtime because you're going to have to put somebody that's already at, max hours for the week on certain jobs, rescheduling, right? And even if demand is strong, you can still run into a lot of problems. And so controlling this is going to help stabilize things. And so I'm going to show you how to calculate all this. And I might go a little bit fast. So, because I got a lot to cover and, I try to keep these under 15 minutes. Okay, so first we need to get a unique list of the service date here. And so in this data set, I recreated this data set, but essentially you can get this export from Service Titan or from, whatever software you're using. And if you can't, or if you can, but it doesn't look clean, just let me know and I can hop on a call and show you how to do that. Okay, so we have service date here, and what we want to take the unique values, like we don't want duplicates here, but we also want it sorted most recent to oldest, right? And so this is historical data. But if you have like live data, you can do the exact same thing. So what we want to do, I'll do one at a time, one function at a time. So first we want a unique. So go to unique, click on cell B2, press Control Shift down. And if you put this in a table, it'll automatically update as you add new data. So now we have the uniques here. Let me just center everything. And we want this formatted as a date. Okay, so we have the uniques, but what we want to do is we want to flip the sort. We want it to be the most recent date on the top. And so what you can do is you can wrap this with the sort function and then comma, sort index, comma, and then here you want descending. Right. And so now you have the exact same data, it's just flipped, right? It's essentially largest to smallest because Excel formats dates as a number, right? So 46022 is the number of days since January 1st, 1900 is greater than 46021, right? Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to count the number of times the word booked is in the data set here in column N if the date is, January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. So what we can do is equals COUNTIFS because we're using multiple criteria. If it's booked and the service date is, 12/31. So here, and then, so COUNTIFS, so here, and then comma, we want booked, and make sure you put it around quotations. And then here, service date, comma, and then I'll just go up to it. Sometimes Excel blocks. It blocks like the actual cell you want to go through. Okay, so all we have to do the other two, we could lock the cells, meaning we could do like relative and absolute references. But I want to just show you doing it this way. So instead of the word booked, type in the word available, and then you can see here. And then again, instead of the word booked, type in the word blocked. And then you got that here. So the fill rate is going to be equals booked divided by the sum of everything. In other words, there's 2 out of 3. So the fill rate in this example should equal this divided by the sum of these 3. And so you get 0.67%. No, sorry, yeah, not blocked. Yeah, because I was wondering, because it looked off. So not blocked. So let me do this to D3. And so you have 100%. But the problem is what you're going to get sometimes is you're going to get 0. And we don't want 0 because 0 is an error. Meaning that because on the chart, we don't want it to go all the way to the bottom, right? And so what we want to do is we want to do if this is 0 equals if, I don't need 2 equals, if this equals 0, then we want the NA function. And the reason for this is because with Excel charts, you can select ignore NA. right? And so you have that, but if it's not 0, then we want this function here. So if not, then we want that, but we also want to wrap this with an if error function, just in case there's any errors. Like if everything is 0 or something, comma, and then NA again. And then we can just drag this down. And then you might say you have a target of, say, 80% or something. And then just make this equal to the one above it, and then double click that down. Okay, so now what we can do is we can create this chart here. And so it's just 1 year of data. And you can also do, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I mean, however you want to do it. I'm just going to do the full data set. And so what you do is all you have to do is just, if you go here and then press Control Shift down, and then go all the way to the top, and then hold down the Control key, highlight these two, and you have to drag it down to the end. Wait for it. Okay, here. And then go to Insert, go to Recommended, and then go to, you can do the recommended charts. Like this is the one we want right here. And so you could also go to All Charts. You could do a combo chart. But if you wanted both of them to be a line, then you could just do it this way as well. So it's doing the same thing. And then okay. And so it's a little bit noisy. That's why we need to make it, pretty big. And then two other things we want to do is we want to like make this line thinner. So if you double click and then go back to that to where you can sort of see all of them are selected, and then you do the paint bucket, you can make this line thinner, right? And then also if you click on the orange line, you could make it thinner. And then you can also make it, dashed or however you want to do it, just so it sort of looks like this, right? And so you can sort of see that now it is thin. Or also, like, I did the other ones as orange, so we could do that as well, just to make it a little bit easier to see. So if you want this to be orange, you could do that. And then if you want this line to be gray, just so I can make it exactly like the example. And so yeah, so there you go. So that has, that's how you can calculate, what do we call this, dispatch rate? I guess we didn't call it anything. And so you don't even have to have a title. If you want to delete the title, just click on it and delete, and it'll save you a little bit of space. Okay, so that's that. Easy enough. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to create heat maps. So we have a scheduled window, and then you want to see the dispatch rate, for each time window. And so in the data set, there's going to be a bucket. And so in this bucket, what you're going to have is you're going to have to use the ifs function to calculate it. And so you would use that if you don't have the scheduled window. Fortunately, we have the scheduled window, but it's essentially saying, if the hour of this is less than 12, then do, 10 to 12. If it's less than 14, which is 2 p.m., then do 12 to 14. And so you can get all these little buckets. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this here. And again, if you want this file, just shoot me an email. So here, and then we already have the day of the week here. And if you wanted to redo the day of the week, you can just type in the word Monday and then drag that across, right, to Saturday. We can even do Sunday, but in this data set, I think there's no Sundays. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do, and I'll show you the formula just so you can see it. So we need to count the number of times that in this window and Monday, the word booked is there, right? And then we need to divide it by the number of times, booked or available, because we don't want blocked, right? So I'll show you how to redo that formula. So equals COUNTIFS. So the first criteria is this scheduled window, right? Comma. And then is it this time window, comma. And then back here to the day of the week, which we have over here, comma. And then the day here, right? And so that, like, this is before doing the other criteria. So there's 30 examples of this in the data set. But we need booked, right? So then we want here, comma, and then we want booked, right? And so they have 23. So the thing here now, what we have to do is we can copy this, and then we want to divide this by this plus this again here. And so, but instead of, we want to keep booked, but we also want to add available. Right? And so now you get 0.82, right? Which makes sense. And so the reason why we're doing that is because we need to find out how many times things were not blocked. So booked divided by the number of opportunities excluding blocked. And so yeah, so you have that here. And then now I'm going to show you one last little thing. Let me zoom in, make it a percentage. So we want to drag this over, but we're going to get errors. And the reason we're getting errors is because, let me show you, because the columns are changing. So column U changes to column V, but we don't want that. And then also, you can sort of see the blue here in cell B3, that's now changing to this cell here. And so we don't want that to happen. So we have to do what's called absolute and relative referencing. So anywhere you see the column, like two letters, essentially UU, or it could be, column AA, or AB, colon AB, just press the F4 key. So everywhere here, we're just going to go through here and press the F4 key for that. And then now we need to make sure, okay, we're good here. We need to make sure that wherever you see the red, we want to be able to drag it across. And so what we have to do is we have to lock the row. So wherever you see the red, put the $ between the letter and the number. Right here, right here. And then wherever you see the blue, we want to lock the column. So put the $ before the letter. Okay, so if I know what I'm doing here, let's paste. And then, yeah, all of these are errors because Sunday wasn't worked, so we can just delete that. And then now we can minimize this. And now we can do the heat map. So I'm going to show you how to do both. So the first one is super simple. What I'm first going to do is I'm going to copy this and then just paste it here. But the first one, just highlight everything, go to Home, Conditional Formatting, and then Color Scales. And we want green to be high. So color scales like this. Let me zoom in. Okay, so this is good, but like if you wanted to see, okay, what's below 65%? It's like you have to sort of say, okay, here, 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 but if we create another type of heat map that is conditioned on a certain percentage, we can highlight everything, conditional formatting, highlight cell rules less than 65%. And now you have a dynamic changing cell, right? And so you could see everything. And if you wanted to add a word just so your team sort of knows, what that is, then you can press Control-1, go to Custom, and then type in quotations and then benchmark. Say you want a colon, space, quotation. And now it's an actual number that you can change. And we can change the cell, I don't know, to blue or something, just so they know it's a changing cell. But yeah, so you can just sort of see, like, what's below 75% dispatch, fill rate. But anyways, that's all I got for this one. If you want this file, again, the link is in the description. You can download it. If you can't find it, just shoot me an email. questions@databoards.io. And also, if your data isn't quite structured properly, like if you can't get it to look like this and you need some help with that, there's one, you can email me, but two, there's a link in the description to my calendar. You can just set up a time to chat. But anyways, that's all I got for this one, and I'll see you in future videos.